Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. I'm Shweta Kothari. We're bringing you stories from the world of business policy and economy. First up, let's take a look at headlines. Personal loans are set to get costlier as RBI flags concern, raises risk weight for personal loans and credit cards. Air passenger traffic rises 11% in October. IndiGo remains king of the aviation sector at 63.4% market share. And Vodafone's net subscriber loss plateaus in October as Jio subscriber growth decelerates. Total wireless subscribers increased to 114.8 crores in the month of August. And you can now watch Pokemon shows and movies on JioCinema. Deal with Pokemon, part of RIL's push into children's entertainment segment. Safe Harbour will not apply for platforms with algorithms and AI bias. IT Minister Rajeev Chandrashekar says platforms have no business to put out experimental content. UCO Bank erroneously credits 820 crore rupees to account holders after glitch in the IMPS money transfer option, recovers as much as 649 crores. And it takes less than a second to crack 70% passwords in India. A study points out the most common password among Indians in 2023 was 123456. All those stories here on Newsline. With me is Karthik Malhotra. Hi, Karthik.
Hi, Shweta.
Well, let's start with our biggest story that we're tracking, and that is personal loans are going to get more expensive. RBI has flagged concerns, has increased the risk weight on these loans. What has happened?
So what's really happened is, Shweta, RBI has increased the risk weight on unsecured personal loans from 100% to 125%. What does this mean? It's a 25% jump. But what this means is that banks who are lending to borrowers unsecured loans or loans that do not carry a mortgage will now have to provision for 25% more on their own books in case those loans were to default. Now, what this really eventually comes down to for consumers like you and me is that if you want to take a personal loan from a bank, or if you want to get a greater exposure on your credit card from a bank, and if you happen to be in the unsecured category, then banks, to offset this higher weight and the higher provisioning that they have to do against these loans, will eventually end up charging a higher rate of interest from consumers like you and me. Now, it's not just the banks actually that lend to consumers in an unsecured loan fashion. The unsecured loans mostly come from the NBFCs, the non-banking finance corporations. Where do they take their money from? They eventually borrow money from banks and lend out to consumers. So the impact is really going to be felt more on NBFCs, and NBFCs will have to borrow from banks at a more expensive cost. Eventually, to recoup their own profitability, they will have to lend out again at a higher rate. So all this actually means that RBI, which has been creating this, alarm bells around unsecured loans and this credit economy, which has been growing and easy credit available to consumers, and how consumers are saving less and taking more loans to spend more, RBI has been, over the last few months, a little concerned, a little worried about this situation ballooning. And now it is saying that, we've given enough guidance, we've given enough hints to banks to sort of control their books when it comes to unsecured loans. And we want banks to lend out more secured loans, loans which are to salaried employees, loans that have some sort of a collateral, some sort of a mortgage attached to them. And by way of banks not doing it voluntarily, RBI has now increased the risk weight from 100% to 125%.
Essentially means that it's going to be more difficult now to get an unsecured loan for a person out
It'll
there.
definitely be more expensive, more difficult or not. I think, again, it depends, because NBFCs and banks both, profit from lending out to borrowers, and that is pretty much their source of income, their source of revenue.
So it's
the
not
interest
going to
that
be
they
more
get.
stringent, but more expensive.
More expensive. So if it is more expensive, I think they would prefer to push secured loans rather than unsecured loans. But in the same breath, I'd like to add that the regular loans like your car loan, auto loans, home loans, education loans, those are outside of this ambit of unsecured loans, which now carry a higher risk weight.
All right, so unsecured loans, literally loans that have no collateral, are given to non-salaried employees and given on the basis of their risk credit and creditworthiness. all of that is going to get more expensive in days to come. But moving on to a story that we're tracking by the way of India's ballooning aviation sector is concerned. There's been an 11% rise in passenger traffic and IndiGo remains the king.
So, Shweta, I think October is usually a good month. This year as well, despite the delayed Diwali and Diwali happening in the month of November instead of October, still saw the Dussehra and the Dussehra break in schools, etc. come around in October. So, in general, October is usually a good month for travel. Now, a few months ago, in fact, we saw aviation traffic or passenger traffic taking to the skies breach the pre-COVID 2019 levels, which was seen as a good sign for economic recovery, good sign for the aviation sector. Now, what we've seen this time around is almost a 12%, 11.6% jump year on year in the month of October. And no surprise who's leading that pack. Of course, we've seen in the last many quarters, it has been IndiGo, which has been taking more passengers to the skies, and that story remains intact. IndiGo continuing to command over 60% of the market share.
Right, but the market share is shrinking a little bit and it's losing its share to Vistara, I'm given to understand.
So what is also happening, Shweta, in the same breath is that IndiGo already has grounded about 40 of its aircraft, 40 to 50 aircraft, and there are more aircraft which have the Pratt & Whitney faulty engine likely to be grounded Jan onwards. So that problem has not yet hit Air India with Vistara combined, and that problem is right now limited to IndiGo as the only other airline outside of Go First which has been impacted with this Pratt & Whitney faulty engine issue. So that could be one of the reasons why the number of flights being taken off using the IndiGo aircraft and IndiGo's ability to carry more and more passengers would have dipped marginally, to my understanding. At the same time, we are talking about Air India adding one aircraft a week, as many as I think 470 aircraft to be added over the course of next 18 months or so, suggesting that the aircraft deliveries are happening at a faster clip for Air India, and their ability to get more passengers accommodated in every flight, and hence more number of flights carrying more number of passengers, shoring up numbers for them. But this data is October. I think the Air India order book and the Air India delivery of aircraft will start commencing only from end November. So yeah, I mean,
a substantial perhaps a shift will be seen.
There would be some sort of a shift that we should foresee traffic moving to the Air India Vistara Air Asia.
And what's not going to do well for IndiGo is the fact that their existing Pratt & Whitney engine issues will ensure or will enable them to not take more flights on, will actually hamper their ability to continue flying as many as aircrafts they're flying at the moment. That is likely to hit them in the first quarter of financial year
starting Jan 2024, it is likely to, not just a financial, in fact calendar year, Jan 2024 is when we will see some sort of an impact of more number of aircraft grounded because of the faulty Pratt & Whitney engines. But at the same time, IndiGo has also placed large triple-digit aircraft orders with both Boeing as well as Airbus. So we will see, we don't have news yet of when their aircraft delivery is going to begin. But one thing is for sure that with more and more passengers taking to the skies, with more aircrafts coming into existing airlines, even though many existing airlines gradually falling off the block, the latest being Go First, we will see this continued interest in Indians flying. We will see this continued interest in more air traffic, passenger continuing, and that trend is at one level great for India because air travel is obviously aspirational. Air travel not just for business where the cost is undertaken by organizations when you travel for work, but even holiday season traffic, which we saw in the month of October, is good news overall for the economic health of the country, and the fact that that there is, despite high prices of tickets, the trend line has been on the upward swing only, and it hasn't reversed.
All right, from one ballooning industry to another, aviation to telecom. Telecom is also adding more and more subscribers, but what's heartening to see is that it may not be a duopoly after all, because Vodafone is losing subscribers, but not at the same clip as it was a couple of months ago.
So it pretty much seems that Vodafone, at least if you were to look at data for the month of August this year, it seems that Vodafone is perhaps back in the game. Now, how is it back in the game? Because we saw Vodafone lose just a little under 50,000 subscribers, 49,600 odd subscribers, as against 13 lakh, 1.3 million subscribers it lost in the month of July. And we've seen over time consumers porting out of Vodafone, porting into either Airtel or Jio, as the case may be. And Vodafone has been sort of, lambasted with this loss of customers on a month-on-month basis. Surprisingly, in the month of August, we've seen a sharp correction in that trend. And the decline
What's led to the correction?
So, according to a few publications that have taken quotes from statements from the Vodafone Idea management, apparently Vodafone's focus in the month of August and thereon has been to try and retain only quality customers. I think by quality customers, they would mean, I'm guessing here, they would mean customers with better ARPU, customers that subscribe to the family pack, where it's not just one individual who's porting out, but it would pretty much disrupt the entire family pack offering, and that gives certain cost advantages. So it would be the entire family needing to port out.
Right.
So I think the focus has mostly been on high ARPU customers. The focus has been to try and retain and provide better service to those customers who are paying Vodafone more. And at the same time, the management is also saying that they have focused on getting their 4G network strengthened. So fewer call drops, lesser sort of, buffering of data when you want to consume video content, better speeds on 4G, lesser network droppage, black zones, dark zones. So overall, I think a little bit of push in infrastructure when it comes to offering a better 4G experience to customers, and focusing on retaining the high value customers, the better quality customers who are not really there to save 100 rupees a month or 50 rupees a month and make the effort of porting out. Give them better service, give them better data connectivity.
So focus on the existing customers as opposed to acquiring new customers.
Right. So,
but coming back to ARPU, because you briefly touched on that, despite the ballooning wireless segment to the tune of about 114 crore individuals in this country who are using telecom services, one operator or the other, there is a very little cost advantage to many of these telecom players because ARPUs remain abysmal.
So Airtel has been crying foul for the longest time now that it's going to be very difficult to stay in the game and to sustain the business at the current ARPU of about 180 to 200 rupees. Airtel believes that ARPU should go up to as much as 300 rupees, and ARPU, just for our viewers, is average revenue per user. So the average billing that every user does every month on the telecom service that they subscribe to should be about 300 rupees a month, and that is what is going to keep telecom companies profitable, that is going to keep the business sustainable. And remember, India is pretty much the cheapest country out there when it comes to data. How much we spend on data is the lowest compared to even our neighbor China, even developed countries like UK,
and
Singapore, US, etc., as well as developing countries like Mexico, Brazil, Russia, etc.
So we just don't want to pay for the data we want to use.
I think we have seen that this sort of exciting rate at which you can get every GB of data is keeping consumers consuming more. So it's a function of scale versus unit economics. Scale, raking those huge revenues versus profitability. So I think that is the debate which is on in the telecom sector right now. But even though Vodafone, at least temporarily right now, it is only 1 month data which has shown this massive correction, suggests that Vodafone's losses are now finally getting hemmed in. You also see at the same time Reliance Jio adding 3 million subscribers in the same month. So Vodafone loses 50,000.
And also sticking its neck out that we are okay with the ARPUs.
We are okay with the rates. We've got deep pockets. Worry not. We've got your back, consumers. You don't need to pay anymore. Anybody asks you to pay more, port on to us. So I think Jio adding 3 million subscribers, Airtel adding about 1.2 million subscribers, and Vodafone losing 50,000 subscribers still suggests that the market is more tilted in favor of Jio and Airtel. Jio commanding about 45 crore subscriptions, Airtel a little shy, about 20% lower than that, at about 36, 37 crore or so, and Vodafone a distant third there with just about 22 crore odd subscribers. So
about 20% of the total market.
That's right. So the battle is still far from over. I think it is early days to start celebrating a Vodafone recovery recovery story just as yet, but at least as long as Vodafone is able to cut down on its losses, reduce the number of subscribers porting out, there is some measure of confidence there in the management and overall in the market as well, that maybe it's a little early to write off Vodafone and there could be some sort of a recovery.
Right, and sticking on with Jio, Jio is doing well not just in the telecom sector but also in media and entertainment sector, trying to get as many users on board as possible. Come to think of it, JioCinemas, you can now watch Pokemon shows on JioCinemas.
Not just as yet, but yeah, that deal is likely to get inked as per a report filed by Reuters yesterday, and it seems that Pokemon, that very famous popular Japanese anime series, is now going to make its way into the Jio platform. And
free of cost?
I don't know whether it's going to be free of cost or not, because I think you've got to subscribe to JioCinema now. It was a service which was offered free to get-in customers earlier. Then the IPL rights, which got backed by Jio, prompted it to offer IPL for free again to get a lot of subscribers and get a lot of users, if not subscribers originally, and convert them at a later stage. Now, about 1,000 episodes of Pokemon, the television series, and about 20 films on the Pokemon character, the anime film collection, is both going to make its way onto the JioCinema platform, which of course, as we know, is owned by Viacom 18, which is promoted by the Reliance Group, Mukesh Ambani. Now, I think it shows a very clear focus that it's not just the HBO series, the mature content like Game of Thrones or Succession, which is going to attract the high value, you know, high intellect, sort of urban Indian, English speaking, English thinking Indian to latch on. It's also going to be the masses by way of IPL and cricket rights. And then why leave the children category alone? So it is going to be the children category also, with Pokemon and many other, as many as 3,000 odd titles are likely to be purchased by the JioCinema library to offer the young sort of children also to spend more time watching JioCinema versus consuming, let's say, a Boss Baby on Netflix. And some reports in Financial Express today suggest that even a Boss Baby-like series could make it to Jio for exclusive India streaming.
Look
as
at the
opposed
diversification
to Netflix, where it is
of business
now.
for JioCinema.
So absolutely, I think JioCinema is pretty clear. And also remember that, Voot Kids was the children's OTT platform which Jio deliberately shut down to consolidate all its programming, entertainment-based programming, on a single platform called JioCinema. So Voot Kids, which had certain libraries from Nickelodeon, from the Viacom children's section, even from Cartoon Network, I think Jio continues to hold some of those rights, and even if it has relinquished those rights, it is going to be in the race to get those rights back and make sure that whatever it may have lost by way of time spent by children on a Reliance platform, which was Voot Kids earlier, should now easily get migrated to JioCinema and build one platform which offers everything to everybody, rather than multiple small platforms which are dedicated to specific user groups.
So a whole host of audience, a whole set of audience, from mature audience to cinema lovers to entertainment to cricket fans. Jio there making sure it diversifies its consumers as much as possible, tap into as many consumers as possible. True. But moving away to a story that we're tracking by the way of India's digital ecosystem and the deep fake news items that have poured in from the last week onward. IT Minister now says that safe harbour provisions will not apply to platforms that are putting out content that could be artificially manipulated. So you cannot claim immunity from prosecution if you are deliberately putting out content as a platform.
True, Shweta. So I think a couple of very interesting points raised by MOS Meti, Mr. Rajeev Chandrashekar. And there is the safe harbour clause as part of Rule 79 of the IT rules of the IT Act in India, and that suggests that platforms could seek immunity against user-generated content. But MOS IT is suggesting that the safe harbour clause, which grants this immunity to platforms, and which are the platforms we are talking about, pretty much all social media platforms like Facebook, Meta, YouTube, Instagram, etc. All of them cannot use this safe harbour immunity when we talk about AI-generated content. And at the same time, the minister is also saying that experimental content experimented with using generative AI, whether it is through a chat GPT or a Google Bard or any other such tool which is available out there to create artificially created, artificially generated content of any kind, will be outside of this gamut of safe harbor. And at the same time, he's saying that platforms have no business to let such experimental content come out on their platforms.
Where's the room for creativity, Karthik?
So, Shweta, I think it's a function of creation versus distribution right now. You want to do experiments, creating something, do those experiments in a closed user group. But is there merit without really being completely guarded against deep fakery, without being completely guarded against copyright infringements, without being guarded against all other ethical concerns around biases when it comes to AI? It's fine to experiment and train platforms and create that content, but is it fair to distribute that content and run the risk of people believing that content to be true? So I think the creativity impetus, and India in fact has stood out and said, despite a lot of Western powers that be trying to curb AI through regulation, India has always maintained, and I think will continue to maintain, that we are not trying to throttle innovation. We are not trying to thwart innovation. Rather, we just want to create a framework through which we make sure that this innovation is not misguided, misdirected, and does not become a tool for misinformation or disinformation.
Okay.
So I think there is no constraint, no restriction on the creative prowess that AI can offer. But I think the restriction is on distribution of that content.
So don't choose social media platforms to distribute
So
the content that you know to be untrue.
And at the same time, if you remember last week, Shweta, Meta had come out with a guideline suggesting that any advertisement or any sort of commercial content which has been created using Gen AI or AI generated any sort of content is going to carry a disclaimer that this has been digitally altered, this has been digitally created, recrafted, and is not an original piece created by an artist. So Rajeev Chandrashekar also saying that that is not enough. Just providing a disclaimer that this is AI generated content and leaving it to the judgment of viewers to either read that disclaimer or not is not going to suffice. So pretty much he's saying that stop putting deepfake content, stop putting AI generated content on an experimental basis on social media, and don't think that you will be protected using the safe harbor clause of IT Rule 79, because this is not necessarily user generated content, this is AI generated content, and AI generated content will need, even in the absence of a Digital India Act and even in the absence of AI regulations in India, he's saying there are enough checks and balances, enough rules and guardrails that protect that protect users against becoming victims to deepfake sort of imaginations and creativity.
Right. So it's not just the creators of deepfake that will have a problem, it's also promoters, including your social media platforms, that actually host this content.
That's right, absolutely. And one more very interesting thing that I want to touch upon is the fact that even though last week or so Rajeev Chandrashekar had asked social media platforms to take down all deep fake content or all AI driven sort of misguided content, disinformation, misinformation from their platforms within 36 hours. At the same time, he's also asked users, people like you and me who hop on to social media platforms, to actually at any point if they discover fake content to flag it and to file an FIR.
Absolutely.
Because in the absence of an FIR, if the government keeps ordering social media platforms to take down content, his point is then the citizens and the platforms say that, hey, the government is against freedom of speech. So he's saying the onus should also be shared by citizens out there, that if there is some AI generated content or deep fake or anything which is disinformation or misinformation, should be flagged, and maybe an FIR should be filed at a user level, so that the government also has more sort of tentacles to go and grab social media platforms to take down that content, rather than it just being a government to social media platform diktats which are seen as against freedom of speech.
Right. So Minister of State for IT, they're saying that people, citizens, need to be more proactive in identifying fake news, artificial intelligence, or altered through AI, content that is altered through AI, flag it, ensure that you file an FIR, but more importantly, putting the onus not just on creators of artificially generated content, but also the platforms that generate those content. Moving on to a story that we're tracking that has come in by the way of UCO Bank. Some may find it funny, others may find it a serious breach of trust. But UCO Bank seemed to have credited as much as 820 crore rupees in account holders' accounts, saying that it was an IMPS technical glitch.
So, Shweta, I don't know, I thought Kaun Banega Crorepati was one of the greatest reality shows there ever was, continues to be for one. I think UCO Bank has also sort of played that game on a lighter vein. I think a lot of consumers would have been, bank customers would have been very pleasantly surprised to get a few lakhs or a few crores in their bank accounts. But of course, this has been a technical glitch, and UCO Bank has now asked CBI to step in and help, because accidentally more than 800 crore rupees was transferred by way of an IMPS glitch into accounts of its customers, and thankfully it has been able to recover more than 650 crore rupees of that money. About 79–80% of that has been recovered already. Hopefully the rest of it should also get recovered, and that little glimmer of hope that customers would have possibly had, that hey, maybe I won a lottery, and
but
maybe
you couldn't have you couldn't have withdrawn that money.
You could not have withdrawn it, but I think you would have just seen your bank balance and you would have said, oh my God, I am a crorepati. I didn't even participate in the reality show, in the quiz show, and did not buy a lottery ticket. But yeah, I think on a serious note, definitely a very, very serious glitch. You've got customers' deposits with you, you've got institutional deposits with you, and as much as 800 crores plus of that getting squandered away by way of a technical glitch and being deposited in account holders who are not the rightful owners of that is very, very serious in nature, and I think there is going to be an investigation.
RBI is involved, CBI is involved,
of course,
so the regulatory authorities
we'll have to see
involved.
what measures RBI is going to take. Is there going to be some sort of a moratorium on the bank to sort of get any IMPS or any other digital transactions going? What happens to customers who are legitimate bank account holders at the bank, their access to their money, etc. I think we'll have to see how the story moves from here, but definitely a very, very serious lapse, even though it is technology at play and a glitch in technology. But I don't think banks can absolve themselves from the responsibility of making sure that that technology does not fire in a glitch-free fashion.
Absolutely. We are given to understand 649 crores have been recovered out of the 820 crore that were wrongfully sent out, put in the bank accounts of account holders, so credited to bank account holders. 80% of that money has come back to UCO Bank, but investigation currently underway, whether it was a technical glitch, whether it was human interference, what exactly were reasons for the erroneous IMPS transfer. But before we close this bulletin, a very interesting story, by the way, of what's your password. If you're guessing, and you need not guess, for most Indians, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's the password.
And Shweta,
that is,
despite this story making it to headlines over and over again, your password should not be password. Your password should not be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your password should not be QWERTY, QWERTY. Well, I'm not going to tell you my password. And your password should not be your date of birth in any combination. I think Indians across the board just find it so convenient to not remember a complex password and set a password as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, a report suggests that it takes less than a second to be able to crack almost 70% of all passwords. So, what kind of data security are we sort of putting ourselves at risk to? It seems very, very obvious that all those folks out there who have a password which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or password or QWERTY need to change their password immediately, because
are you sure that's not your password,
Karthik? Try hacking into it. I've got 2-step verification for each of my accounts. So I think it is very, very clear that it's time to change those passwords, because your data, your money, your critical confidential information is all at risk if a hacker could just take a second to get into your information, your bank account, your any confidential information. So I think if customers out there, users, viewers out there have any of these passwords, it's time to change that immediately. You included, Shweta.
Absolutely. But I'm reading one of the most common used
India
password,
1, 2, 3.
and that happened to be my password for several accounts. So clearly, one of those.
Is that still your password? Because you need to change it before the show.
I'm not going to declare that. But on a more serious note, it appears that it takes less than 1 second to crack 70% passwords in India. Most common password being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you are someone who is who wants to ensure that their private information remains private, is concerned about their private information not becoming public, their financial details not becoming public, kindly change your password, make it more secured. But with that, we've run out of time on this show. Thank you very much for watching.